5 Longevity Habits. What I am offering you right now is not abstract. These represent the very same 5 routines I have actively suggested to each vulnerable adult at my practice over the past decade, and the outcomes have transformed lives in manners I still consider exceptional. Here is a reality that most individuals past 50 have never been told, and it truly astounds even a few of my own clinical peers. The most potent natural wellness asset readily accessible to you nowadays costs zero, needs no medical authority, and can be initiated before you conclude watching this broadcast. My name is Dr. Lana Mitchell, and after 27 years as a clinical physician and cellular health investigator, I have dedicated my profession to analyzing precisely why some folks experience illness after 50 and why others simply do not. What I have discovered has radically altered how I guide each person who enters my office. In 2022, academics at Harvard's Public Health Institution released a major project in the publication JAMA Oncology, tracking over 135,000 subjects across 20 years. Their conclusion was striking. Folks who steadfastly observed a particular set of daily routine behaviors minimized their general health risks by up to 61% compared to individuals who did not. 61%. That is not an insignificant shift. That is the divide between a medical crisis and an excellent report of health for hundreds of thousands of citizens. Before we proceed any further, I desire to hear from you. Place your age in the remarks section right now. Merely your age or a brief message regarding your main physical worry after 50. I check every single post, and realizing who is tuning in assists me to craft material that truly benefits you. Today, I'm going to guide you through the 5 most beneficial health preservation routines open to mature adults, ordered from basic to revolutionary. We will advance toward the single most impactful item. And I assure you, by the moment we arrive there, you will grasp not merely what to perform, but precisely how it functions in your anatomy at the microscopic grade. Do not skip forward. Every custom rests on the prior. And the premium point, the one that my most striking patient transformations all possess in common, is an element you almost certainly underappreciate. Remain with me. The impact of nutrition. Now, start with habit number 5. Let us commence with something that appears basic, but functions through a pathway most individuals have never had described correctly. And once you grasp it, you will never view a box of snacks the same manner again. Every cell in your anatomy is continuously copying, splitting, and renewing itself. In a robust system, an operation termed genetic mismatch correction functions like an editor, spotting mistakes in your hereditary blueprint before they turn into alterations, before alterations turn into masses. Here is the vital issue. After age 50, the productivity of your internal repair mechanisms naturally drops by roughly 30 to 40%. Your system turns into a less dependable editor at precisely the flash when decades of organic friction have gathered the most errors. Highly processed items, think box treats, fast dining, processed sandwich meats, sugar-heavy fluids, quicken this decay massively by filling your cells with advanced glycation end products or AGEs, which are irritating compounds that straight away damage your recovery enzymes. A 2023 analysis out of Imperial College London, featured in the European Journal of Nutrition, observed 197,000 adults and discovered that those whose patterns were highest in packaged foods carried a 32% greater likelihood of encountering intestinal issues and a 19% higher likelihood of chest issues compared to those who consumed mostly unrefined foods. That identical year, investigators at the National Cancer Institute validated in medical literature that packaged food intake was separately linked with a 28% spike in general health mortality, even after balancing for mass, tobacco use, and physical inactivity. This implies the nourishment itself, not just the heaviness it causes you to accrue, is the issue. I wish to describe a case of mine. I will name her Sandra, 58 years old, an administrator from the West Coast, who visited me after her sibling was diagnosed with intestinal disease. Sandra's intake was what she termed standard cereal in the morning, a packaged roll at midday, boxed crackers, and processed dairy for a snack. Her irritation markers, specifically her C-reactive protein and interleukin-6 tiers, were both notably raised. Across 12 months, Sandra swapped her packaged items with unrefined alternatives, grains, beans, greens, olive oil without any other adjustment. Her CRP tiers dropped by 44%. Her IL-6 balanced out entirely, and her subsequent scan demonstrated a correction of the low-grade tissue irritation her specialist had noted. For you, beginning today, this signifies one definitive transition. Swap one packaged item in each meal with an unrefined option. Not all of them at once, merely one. Morning cereal turns into porridge with fruit. The boxed snack bar turns into an apple with a handful of nuts. The processed lunch meat turns into a piece of baked poultry or a boiled egg. These are not denial selections. They are cellular defense selections. And here is the cooperative bond to retain in mind. When you merge this custom with habit number 4, which I am about to state, the drop in your internal irritation becomes multiplied in a manner that data displays is far greater than either routine by itself. Before we reach habit number 4, I require you to grasp something. What you are about to discover next is one of the most disregarded wellness defense plans in all of modern medicine, and practically no one past 50 is executing it reliably. Number 4, rest and immune surveillance. Now talk about habit number 4. When most folks contemplate sleep, they think about feeling awake. When I think about sleep as a physician, I think about something termed immunosurveillance, and it is one of the most remarkable defensive systems your anatomy commands. Your protective network holds custom units termed natural killer units, or NK units, whose task is fundamentally to scan your circulation and cells, spotting and neutralizing early-stage foreign cells before they can anchor themselves. Contrast them to your system's personal defense guards. Here is what most folks do not realize. NK unit vigor is almost fully managed by your rest patterns, especially the profound quiet rest phases that rule the early portion of your night. Periods 3 and 4 of deep sleep are when your anatomy discharges a flow of signaling proteins, molecules that straight away boost NK unit generation and trigger them. After age 60, the share of deep rest your anatomy naturally produces drops by roughly 50%. Signifying your internal scanning network is operating at half capacity unless you actively practice to preserve it. A 2019 report from the University of Chicago featured in the Journal of Experimental Medicine demonstrated that merely 1 week of resting fewer than 6 hours per night diminished natural killer unit vigor by 70% in well adults. 70%. A separate 2021 review from the International Agency for Research on Cancer, which examined records from 27 projects and over 2 million subjects, discovered that lasting brief rest length, marked as fewer than 6 hours, was linked with a 40% elevated likelihood of chest issues, a 36% elevated likelihood of glandular issues, and a 55% elevated likelihood of intestinal issues in adults past 55. My patient, Robert, 63 years old, a retired technician who took pride in operating well on 5 to 6 hours of rest, came to view me following a concerning tissue discovery. Robert was not heavy. He did not smoke. He moved frequently, but his rest was broken and brief. We set up a precise rest cleanliness plan, a uniform 10:30 p.m., bedtime total luminescence and screen blackout after 9 p.m., a room climate of 67 degrees Celsius, and a mineral supplement to aid deep phase quality. Within 8 weeks, his personal rest time had expanded to 7.5 hours, and his wearable rest record information demonstrated a doubling of his deep rest periods. His NK unit amount, checked through subsequent lab work, rose by 38%. For you, the most practical starting point is what rest academics term anchor sleep. Pledging to the identical alarm time every single morning, even on days off, because your alarm time grounds your biological clock far more intensely than your bedtime. Set that clock, maintain it. Even 1 week of uniform alarm timing noticeably betters rest structure in adults past 50. And when you couple enhanced rest with the nutritional updates from habit number 5, your system's irritating base drops to a point where your protective scanning network can operate the way it was framed to. But as potent as these initial 2 routines are, they are groundwork for what arrives next. A custom that straight away interfaces with the chronological clock of your cells in a manner that investigators only completely grasped within the past 15 years. 3. Purposeful physical activity. Now start with habit number 3. I wish to alter your perspective on something right now because the word exercise carries a burden, a feeling of duty and strain that causes most adults past 50 to look away. What I am about to detail is not training in the manner you are picturing it. What I am highlighting is intentional daily activity, and its consequences on cellular biology are so distinct and so deep that I believe it earns its own clinical area. At the center of this custom is a compound termed insulin-like growth factor 1, or IGF-1. IGF-1 is a messenger that encourages cell enlargement, which is precisely what it sounds like, both helpful and risky. In youth, IGF-1 fuels healthy growth. But after 50, permanently high IGF-1 tiers, which are straight away caused by non-active patterns, function as an activator for bad cells, quickening their spreading. Constant moderate activity is one of the few lifestyle choices demonstrated to decrease baseline IGF-1 tiers and concurrently increase a protective molecule termed P53, which acts as your cell's most potent internal braking signal against hazardous growth. A 2020 project from the American Cancer Society, featured in the Journal of Clinical Oncology, monitored 186,000 adults for 10 years and discovered that those who did at least 150 minutes of moderate pace activity per week carried a 42% diminished likelihood of experiencing colon issues, a 38% diminished likelihood of chest issue returns, and a 26% lower likelihood of general health mortality. A sister project from the University of Queensland featured in The Lancet in 2022 discovered that simply breaking up long sitting with 5-minute strolls every hour decreased vascular markers of illness-driving irritation by 27% without any formal exercise at all. My patient Eleanor, 71 years old, visited me 2 years after an early-stage chest health diagnosis. She had finished care victoriously, but was frightened of a return. Eleanor had joint pain and could not run or complete standard fitness center routines. We shaped her an activity plan around what she could manage. 20 minutes of brisk walking after breakfast, standing while viewing programs in the evening, and 5-minute stretch and stroll spaces every hour during her sedentary afternoon reading duration. At her 12-month check, her IGF-1 tiers had dropped by 23%. Her doctor observed notably bettered NK unit tallies in her laboratory work, and she explained her stamina and focus as completely renewed. For you, the execution is this. Commence with a 20-minute stroll after your biggest dining of the day. Data from Stanford released in 2021 validates that post-meal strolling uniquely blocks post-meal sugar spikes, which independently power bad cell fuel use by up to 33%. You do not require a gym. You do not require machinery. You require your own front door and a reliable dedication. And when this activity routine is placed on top of the rest enhancement from habit number 4 and the nutritional shift from habit number 5, your IGF-1, CRP, and IL-6 tiers, 3 of the most crucial illness-encouraging structures in your anatomy, can drop in a manner that no solitary choice accomplishes alone. Now, if you are discovering worth in what we are addressing today, I wish to halt and make a brief appeal. Please join this channel, press the approval button, and pass this broadcast to someone past 50 who you cherish. This material demands months of analysis to create, and your backing permits me to keep making it freely accessible. Now, habit number 2 is one that startled even me when I initially checked the data because it is something we all execute every single day and practically no one is doing it with their cellular risk in mind. Ooh. Managing systemic stress. Now, habit number 2. I realize what you might be thinking. Stress control sounds minor. It sounds like a comfort phrase, not a clinical measure. I wish to share with you exactly why that view is dangerously mistaken and why, in 27 years of medicine, I now regard permanent emotional strain to be one of the most overlooked drivers of illness after age 50. The vehicle is a molecule termed cortisol, your chief strain chemical. Brief cortisol output is healthy and helpful. It is your body's crisis alert network. But when cortisol is permanently raised, as it is in folks enduring ongoing pressure, worry, sorrow, isolation, or unaddressed strain, it sparks a chain of physical outcomes that are highly relevant to cell health. Cortisol blocks the function of BRCA1 and BRCA2, your 2 most essential gene preservation units. It increases an irritating pathway termed NF-κB, nuclear factor kappa B, which straightaway encourages bad cell preservation and defiance against apoptosis, the natural cell elimination operation that cleans out ruined or dangerous units. In simple talk, permanent strain instructs your system to keep ruined cells alive rather than destroying them, which is the physical basis of illness. A 2022 project from Ohio State University's Medical Center, featured in Nature Immunology, discovered that permanent mental strain diminished tumor-fighting cell vigor, the protective cells tasked with resisting illness, by 48% in adults past 60. A 2023 broad review from the Karolinska Institute in Sweden, pulling records from 16 projects and nearly 500,000 subjects, discovered that adults with clinically raised permanent strain indicators carried a 43% greater likelihood of encountering blood-related issues, including leukemia and lymphoma, and a 31% higher likelihood of respiratory issues compared to low-strain individuals. My patient David, 66 years old, a newly finished professional who visited me explaining himself as finally unwinding, possessed lab work that spoke a completely variant tale. His cortisol pattern was flipped, minimal in the morning when it ought to surge and raised at night when it ought to be near zero. He had developed what academics term allostatic burden, a condition of permanent physical strain fixed even in the lack of felt stress. His BRCA1 function was notably blocked. We set up a organized daily plan. 12 minutes of slow, deep breathing each morning using a 4-7-8 breathing method, a 15-minute evening stroll with no mobile device, and weekly community contact, a standard meal with companions. At 6 months, David's cortisol pattern had balanced. His NFKB indicators had dropped by 31%, and his clinical group observed bettered cell tallies across the board. For you, the lowest useful amount of strain control is detailed in a 2021 project from Carnegie Mellon University. Merely 12 minutes of daily focused breathing performed reliably for 8 weeks diminished oral cortisol tears by 26% and noticeably bettered NK unit tallies in adults past 55. You do not require a counselor, a trip, or a software membership. 12 minutes, a silent seat, slow breathing in through your nose for 4 counts, pausing for 7, venting for 8. That is your beginning spot today. And when this drill is coupled with the rest layout from habit number 4, the cellular recovery window your anatomy receives each night turns into drastically more productive because cortisol is one of the primary stoppers of the deep rest phases we addressed. Everything we have detailed so far, the nourishment, the rest, the movement, the strain control, all of it is an introduction because habit number 1 is the one that binds every pathway we have addressed into a single integrated physical measure. And the analysis behind it is so powerful that I almost waver to say this, but it is the lone routine I would pick if I could only pick one for every patient past 50 on Earth. Notzer, time-restricted eating and cellular health. Now, most important habit number 1. I wish to be very exact about what I signify here because this routine is frequently misconstrued, simplified, or disregarded as a slimming craze. What I am detailing is a distinct physical plan with verified protective pathways that have been validated in human trials, and it is the most uncomplicated, most potent, cost-free wellness preservation measure I have faced in nearly 3 decades of clinical analysis. The pathway is a cellular operation termed autophagy, from the ancient terms implying self-consumption. When your anatomy enters a non-fed state, commonly between 13 and 16 hours after your final meal, it triggers an operation by which your cells start to spot, break down, and clear out ruined cellular pieces, including abnormal cells, faulty proteins, and broken energy units. Contrast it to your system running a deep internal scanning and cleaning phase. In fit younger adults, this cycle operates fairly well, but after age 50, autophagy productivity drops sharply, diminished by an adjusted 40 to 50%. Mostly because current dining habits with constant nourishment availability from dawn to late night signify most adults never reach the non-fed state long enough to trigger strong cleaning action. When ruined cells are not cleared out, they gather. Gathered cellular harm is the physical foundation of illness. A 2019 project from the University of Southern California featured in Cell Metabolism discovered that adults who confined their dining to a uniform 10-hour span each day for 12 weeks demonstrated a 34% drop in insulin-like growth factor 1, a 29% drop in CRP irritating indicators, and a noticeable surge of autophagy indicators compared to individuals dining across 15 or more hours. A major 2022 clinical trial from the University of Alabama at Birmingham, featured in the New England Journal of Medicine, tracked 218 adults aged 55 to 70 and discovered that those observing a uniform 14-10 dining span, consuming within 10 hours, avoiding for 14 demonstrated a 37% drop in indicators of oxidative genetic harm and a 41% enhancement in protective gene function, compared to test groups with no food limits needed. Let me tell you about Michael, 61 years old, an educator who visited me 5 years ago with a background of recurring intestinal developments, a family line of glandular illness, and a baseline sugar level resting at the top line of the pre-diabetic span. Michael was not heavy. He consumed what most folks would label a decent diet, but his dining span was 16 hours long, coffee at 6 a.m., a late bite at 10 p.m. His cleaning indicators were among the lowest I had calculated for a non-heavy patient his age. We set up a basic 14-10 plan, his initial meal at 8 a.m., his final bite of nourishment by 6 p.m., fluid and unflavored coffee openly throughout the non-fed span. Within 90 days, his baseline sugar had dropped from 108 to 91. Within 12 months, his subsequent scan demonstrated full clearance of the low-grade changes that had been visible in his prior 2 reviews, a finding his specialist labeled as rare and remarkable. His autophagy indicators, checked through a research panel, had surged by 53%. For you, the execution of this custom is easier than you might anticipate. You do not require to skip dining. You do not require to track calories. You require to define a uniform dining span of 10 to 12 hours and then protect it. If your initial cup of coffee with dairy is at 7 a.m., your kitchen shuts at 7 p.m. If breakfast is at 8 a.m., dinner finishes by 6 p.m. Nothing but fluid, unflavored black coffee or sugarless tea outside that span. Your anatomy manages the rest. And here is the deep cooperative link that binds all 5 routines together. Time-confined dining strengthens every pathway we have addressed. It drops IGF-1, the identical pathway managed by movement. It minimizes cortisol rhythm disruption, aiding the strain control we detailed. It augments the depth and productivity of deep rest sleep. And it minimizes internal irritation even when your food choices are not perfect. This is why I label it the primary switch. Move it, and everything else in this broadcast turns into more potent. True for conclusion. So, let us bring this all home together, because what we have addressed today is not a group of isolated hints. It is a unified physical plan. Habit number 5, cutting out packaged items, clears one of the primary stoppers of your genetic repair tools, the cellular editing network that turns 30 to 40% less productive after 50. Habit number 4, enhancing your rest layout, returns the natural killer unit vigor that is your system's main internal shield against early-stage bad cells, which drops by up to 70% with permanent short sleep. Habit number 3, daily intentional movement straight away, drops IGF-1, the development chemical that powers bad cell multiplying while increasing the p53 cellular protector that instructs dangerous units to halt. Habit number 2, calculated strain control balances the cortisol pattern that blocks your 2 most vital genetic repair units and keeps ruined cells alive longer than they ought to be. And habit number 1, daily time-confined dining sparks autophagy, the cellular cleaning network that is your system's deepest and most basic health preservation pathway and strengthens every other routine on this layout. I wish you to hear something from me straight away as your clinician in this instance. It is never too late. The data I have highlighted with you today does not emerge from reviews of 30-year-olds with ideal heritage. It emerges from reviews of individuals exactly like you. Adults in their 50s, 60s, and 70s who executed focused routine alterations and generated distinct, verified physical enhancements. Your cells are not unchangeable. Your future is not locked. Every morning you wake up is another chance to alter the environment inside your anatomy. Now, I have one last prompt for you. Of these 5 routines, which one are you going to attempt this week? And what is the biggest barrier sitting between you and that initial move? Share with me in the remarks. I truly want to know, and I will reply. If this broadcast offered you something worthy today, please press the approval button, join so you do not miss what is arriving next, and pass this to one individual past 50 who needs to know this data. Your future being is relying on the choice you select right now. Look after yourself because you absolutely